morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the largest Africana Studies classroom in the world, in class with Dr. Carr. Clearly, we're not live today. It is April 24th, is my birthday, so yay. But I also wanted to take this time to say thank you. This is the best birthday gift I could ever have, is to be in fellowship with so many amazing people all over the world who have a similar goal, which is to not just be free, but to be free, educated, and come together around this sense of community. So today I'm going to play one of our greatest hits, episode 2, which Dr. Carr kind of walks us through why history is so important. And at the time we were doing this, it was in the height of the pandemic. Neither one of us knew what this was going to be. It was just two people who enjoyed each other's company coming together to talk about what was happening in the world at the time. And it has evolved to now 50,000 plus people on any given Saturday coming in to engage in these conversations and taking them into the community and taking them into their families and sharing the videos. So we just want to say thank you. And more importantly, what evolved out of this was narrative. Narrative with a K, like knowledge, like to know. Narrative has become a space where I'm extremely proud. It's been, several weeks since we launched it, and already communities are forming around farming, around Egyptology, which we're going to be launching this month. We're going to have a book club that will start in May as well. So please, 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 if you have not signed up, sign up. There's even going to be a place where you can donate classes donate subscriptions, because this is, to me, the key that will unlock everything that we want to do. And I've said this many times before, the pyramid at Giza took 20 plus years to build. This is our digital, educational, foundational pyramid at Giza, and it will be here thousands of years after we're gone, because the knowledge base that's in narrative is immutable. It will not necessarily change, nor will it be irrelevant. Hopefully the purpose behind narrative will be irrelevant 1,000 years from now, meaning the purpose is for us to remember who we are, who we've been to one another, so that we can build the world that we want to live in. So I want to thank you. Up next, episode 2 of In Class with Dr. Carr. Happy birthday to me, and I'll see you guys. We will both see you guys next week. And happy birthday, Dr. Carr. That's April 27th for him. So it's Saturday, and I'm with Dr. Carr, who has more books than anybody.
Oh no!
My God, look at that! Look at that! We're talking about education, because I fear that we're in a space where we have conditioned people to regurgitate and not critically think.
Yes.
We talked about. So as a professor, you see kids come in every semester.
Yes.
Yes. Are Black people ready to take their rightful place in this, and from a critically thinking position? Do you think our kids are ready for what's coming?
I think they are equipped in terms of talent. My real concern is the challenge of apprenticeship. And by that, I mean, well, first of all, I'm always glad to be with you. And I see that this pandemic hasn't slowed you down one bit. If anything, you just taking it to the next level. So I'm very happy to be.
It's trying to whip my ass, but I'm a fighter.
Oh, no question. You gonna whip his ass back. That's what I'm saying. So it's always good to see you, and always good to be with you. And yeah, I'm sequestered in place. Most of my books in storage. I probably got 45, 50,000 books in storage. So these are just this bookshelf and the other 7 or 8 around here. These are just the ones that I get stuffed into this little spot. So I'm stuck in place, but that's okay, because I'm in the library, so I'm good. But no, you raising, to me, this is the most critical issue we face. During segregation, really up until the last couple of generations, our people were, for lack of a better term, stuck with each other. And because we were stuck with each other, with all of the white supremacy, all the deep racism and hypercapitalism surrounding us, there was this sense of collective purpose that drove education. So that teachers in our communities, the Benjamin Mazes and the Mary McLeod Bethunes, were venerated. Avery Institute in South Carolina, here in Washington, D.C., Dunbar High School, the former M Street School, Booker T. Washington in Atlanta, you name it, Vashon in St. Louis. These were the Phyllis Wheatley in Houston. These were the temples. And our children, our young people aspired to learn, not just for themselves, but for the race. When we fast forward to now, we now pass segregation, and Du Bois predicted this in 1960. He said, after desegregation, then Black people, y'all gonna have a real choice to make. What are you gonna be in a society when the laws have been equalized, and now you're going to have to decide deeper questions of race and culture? Because if you don't decide the questions of culture, you're going to disappear into a society that's going to use you for what it needs and leave you with no philosophy. And so what we see
when
now,
he said that, Dr. Carr, when he said that,
yes,
and I know there were like opponents to Du Bois, and I'm gonna chew up the meat, spit out the bone type of person. I'm gonna take what you give me that's good, and if I don't like your personality, whatever, we're gonna put that to the side. But I'm gonna get that knowledge.
yes.
Why wasn't there a groundswell of people to lean into that and say, okay, all right, let's put some coalitions together to make sure that what he's saying doesn't happen, because we're here now. And exactly what he said is where we are.
We are. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Well, first of all, he was like 90 years old when he said it.
Okay, so they're like
looking back over his life,
Okay.
Second of all, he gave a very famous speech. Well, not famous at all. Now that you mentioned, now this is actually the point you're raising, the critical point. The speech where he talked about this most concretely was a talk he gave in 1960 to Black social studies teachers on the campus of Johnson C. Smith College, now University in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the name of the speech was Whither Now and Why. He said, what are we going to do now? And why are we going to do it? And it's so funny because his wife, Shirley Graham, was with him. And this was a conference of Black social studies teachers. And this was actually a speech he gave during the day. And the evening speech, the banquet speech, was Shirley Graham, his wife, an intellectual in her own right. So they tag teamed with this small group, but it was a small group. And he was telling them, this is during the time when you still had those incredible Black Educator Association, the Teachers and Educators Association, the American Teachers Association, cats like Horace Tate in Georgia, and every state in the South had a Black Teachers Association. So these Black social studies teachers are sitting there, and he's telling them, look, they're gonna come in, they're gonna take some of y'all because y'all are all master teachers, but then our children are gonna be trapped. The laws are going to change, and then we're going to lose our cultural purpose. So I think the reason that there wasn't a groundswell of support was really because in many ways, those teachers through the 60s, through the 70s now, because some of those people made it into the 1970s and 80s. I mean, I dare say that you, me, a lot of folks who listen to your show, who watch you on the various platforms, YouTube, and they had, if they're a certain age, they had some of these teachers. These are the fine Black teachers who survived during integration. And then those of us who were bused, they put them in a school. And this may have been the one or two Black teachers that the Black children used to go and congeal around. The sister would say, I'm not going to let you fail. What we see is if you touch her, you're going to find she goes back to this period Du Bois is talking about. But by then, they've been scattered. And then once they're scattered like that, the children who come into the schools in the 1990s, 2000, 2010, they are coming looking for high academic achievement, but the academic achievement is linked to individual success. The academic achievement is linked to making money and doing things that are important, very valuable. But Du Bois's point was, unless you're thinking collectively, unless you're thinking for the race, unless you're thinking I'm going to be a brilliant person who's going to contribute my skills to the race, then we're not going to be able to advance as a group. So now at places like Howard and Spelman and Morehouse and Fisk and North Carolina A&T, where I went to school, Tennessee State, Florida A&M, you see young people coming in who have the talent. That's no question. Who have the high test scores, who have the grade point averages, but who are looking at school very much like many of the high achieving white students are looking at. There are a couple of professors, one was at the University of Virginia. They wrote a book a few years ago called Academically Adrift. And what they said is the undergraduate experience in America has become a situation where young people come to college to build their network, to get the right internship, to make sure they have the right connections. And if they're sitting in class, it's not that the classes aren't interesting, but they want to know one thing: how is this class going to help me advance my individual interests, help me achieve my dreams, so to speak? Well, that's what Du Bois was afraid of in part. So I get students in my classes who are very bright, but who also are asking, well, how's this Africana Studies going to help me? Or, and then, okay, do I have to read the whole book? Yeah, you have to read the whole, well, why? I mean, what is it going to be on the test? These are questions we all asked over the years, but without the type of collective philosophy, intellectual work now has turned into almost like practical work. How's this going to help me achieve my individual goal? And I'll tell you, and finally, that's what I'll say, Du Bois was really afraid, but this is what he was afraid of. If you don't have a philosophy of life that builds on this notion that we're going to achieve something collectively, and one of his phrases, I love the way he put it, he said, this society will have us take our eyes from the stars and fix them on molasses and cornbread. And he said, and if that becomes the case, it's all vocational education. It's all job training education. I don't know why I have to think about Nina Simone. I don't know what I have to consider. I just want some music that makes me feel good. And I don't want to even stop and think too hard about Shirley Graham Du Bois or Eslanda Good Robeson. And that's the thing that I'm afraid we're really on the verge of losing.
Me too. When you were on the show, one of the times, you talked about Carter G. Woodson.
Yes.
Working in a coal mine.
Yes.
Working in a coal mine and bringing information and news and reading the newspaper to the people in the coal mine because they wanted to know. Yes. They worked in a coal mine, but they wanted to know what was going on in the world. They couldn't read. Yeah. And he read, and the thirst for knowledge and the frustration that I have is that people are okay with somebody else telling them something. Ooh. People are okay with going down rabbit holes, watching videos, and not like you just made me write down whither, now, and why, and I'm going to actually read what he said. It's not enough for Dr. Greg Carr to tell me about it. No. I need to read for myself because as I read, I come to some different conclusions.
That's exactly right. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So, and then we can talk about that. This is what I saw when I read this. What did you think about this? And then you were like, hey, wait a minute. But did you consider that? And that banging together is where we get to the next conclusion.
That's right.
No one's doing that.
That's right. Well, that's funny you say that because that. And I hope particularly young people who watch you and who listen to you and who listen to conversations like this, please understand that is exactly the process of education. That is the process. In other words, that's what these brothers, it's so funny because Carter Woodson, as you say, and there's an excellent children's book called Carter Reads the Newspaper that kind of goes through this. So even a first grader or a third grader can read this book and see what Woodson was tasked with doing. Here's a teenage kid working in the coal mines of West Virginia. Here are these brothers, many of whom cannot read or write, but most of whom were veterans of the Civil War. They had fought their way out of slavery. And here's this brother, Oliver Jones, who has a little house, who is also a coal miner. And after their shifts, these brothers would go to Oliver Jones's house, and he had ice cream and soda and stuff in there, and they pay a little money. And he would, they would sit there, and then he would use that money and part of these brothers' salaries, and they subscribed to every newspaper they could get, as many black newspapers and the white ones too. And then Carter Woodson's job was, because he could read and write, in part because his mother and father, who could not read or write coming out of enslavement, James and Eliza, his mother's brothers, were veterans of the Civil War, but they learned how to read and write in the Army during the Civil War, and they became school teachers, and they are the ones who taught their nieces and nephews, including Carter Woodson, in the school they set up after the Civil War. So Woodson learns how to read from his uncles, and so he's able to read. Oliver Jones said, look, son, you can have ice cream, you can have soda, this is your job. You go read these newspapers to us, and we're going to sit here and debate to the point you're raising. We're going to debate the issues. We're going to know everything what's going on. There's a stock market crash in New York. Who is J.P. Morgan? Wait a minute. Hold on. They're going to invade Cuba. What is the Spanish-American War? Woodson is reading. And then here's the thing. As you said, they're debating. And when they come up with something that they don't know about, they send Woodson and say, son, go to the library, go do some research. Next session, we need to know about this. They are literally giving. Now, this man is the second Black person to get a PhD from Harvard. The first was Du Bois. But when anybody asks me, who trained Carter G. Woodson? Oliver Jones and those brothers in that parlor. Why? They couldn't read or write. No. Do you understand the process of education? They needed him to get the information to them, but they sat there slowly and thought and debated and argued and, should we be on the gold standard? What is this silver standard? Why is William Jennings Bryan? These are brothers who couldn't read. They are arguing the points of the day. It's like a barbershop argument, except you're armed now with not just facts about boxing. In fact, Karen, I know you remember this. Remember Richard Pryor used to tell that joke about how he said, my father used to sit in the barbershop and wait for somebody to get a fact wrong. Joe Louis did what? No, he didn't. It was 19 what? No, they went 100. You know what? I got the book at my house. Follow me home. This is the passion our people have, but we're not absorbing the right information. We will debate all day, but to your point, we won't slow down there and absorb the information like Woodson would provide through the papers that these brothers would subscribe to. Now, they're going to argue with you on YouTube. They're going to watch your video and then get in the comments and talk all crazy without ever having read any of the books of the authors you have on, without having read the story that you've given them the headline from and a summary, because you absorbed it all. And like Woodson, you're trying to distribute the rock, and they're like, nah, I don't agree. How can you agree or not agree? You don't even know what we're talking about. But that's the society we live in. And that's the kind of society that can elect a Donald Trump. That is the kind of society where artists and entertainers are asked political opinions. Why are you asking a person who didn't study a subject about a subject of life or death to us? I mean, you can ask them as a human being, but I'm certain you don't think they have an expert opinion. That is what it has broken down.
Is it fixable? And that's the question that's on the table for me. I mean, every day I'm an optimistic person.
Yes.
My glass is always half full. Yes. And it gets me up every day because I'm hopeful.
Yes.
But recently, Dr. Carr, and there is a self-preservation in all of us, right? A self-preservation gene where you just like, I'm good. Let me just pull up stakes.
Oh, no question.
I want to do what I do.
No question.
I can do a lot of things. I can make money. I'm good.
You want to survive.
These fools do whatever.
That's right.
But I feel like I was put here to teach. I know you were put here to teach.
That's what you're doing right now.
Till I have no more breath in my body. And teaching for me is learning and then coming back and telling you what I learned and then examining it and changing my view when I get more information. Because that's what good learners, good teachers, if there's a fact that runs counter to what I believe,
that's right.
I need to be willing to move off of what I believe to move towards the fact, Do you see hope?
Oh, no question. There's hope because we come from hope. And we do more than come from hope. We come from achievement. Marcus Garvey says something. He's, what people have done, people can do. Now, the conditions we've never faced before. We've never had technology invade every element of our life. We've never had a pandemic like this. In fact, I was reading a book. I don't know if I have it over here somewhere. It's a brother somewhere. I had to look for it. It'd take forever to find it. But there's a brother who's a retired professor at Penn State. He wrote a book called From TB to AIDS, which is the history of... All
right, slow down, Doc. Oh, no. I got a notebook here. I don't play around with you.
I know you don't.
We talking, I got a notebook. From TB to AIDS.
Here it is right here. David McBride, From TB to AIDS.
And that looks self-published.
This brother, no. This was actually State University of New York Press.
Okay.
Yeah. But actually, Professor McBride has a new book that just came out. I haven't gotten it yet on the history of Blacks in the medical profession. But in this book, he literally writes the history of how Black people have dealt with epidemics since really 1900. So we talk about the Spanish
before the Spanish flu, because that was 1918.
That's
So
exactly right. And he writes about it. He's got all these chapters in here dealing with TB, dealing with polio, dealing with the Spanish flu. And what he shows is Black institutions were our first line defenders. There was a network of Black hospitals throughout this country. The Black doctors, the National Medical Association, they unify. And we're seeing some of that today, for sure. So when we talk about hope, part of it is rooted in knowing what we did before. And see, that's where study comes in. People say, oh, we can't do that. Hold on. You did it before. No, we didn't. Hold on. Yes, you did. Read this. In fact, you're right. We could tell you about it. We could suggest you where to go, but you're going to have to spend a little bit of time studying. And now that technology that looks like something that's eating our minds becomes an asset if you know where to look. Then somebody says, you know what? I spent an hour, and then that rabbit hole becomes something very different. You know what? A rabbit hole. I looked at that from TB to AIDS, and then that led me to this whole conversation about Providence Hospital in Chicago. And then I realized, wait, I live on the south side of Chicago. I didn't even know. And then I found out the Black Nurses Association is still around. So I went to the meeting. In other words, but it started with, I took an hour. Then it became 2 hours. Then I looked up and it had been 3 hours, except I'm not looking at TikTok videos. I'm actually studying. I think that's where the hope is. We know we can do it. Right. And the only other thing I would say is it's interesting that I have a group of high school students. We meet every Wednesday. We've been doing this thing called Philadelphia Freedom Schools for 20 years. And of course, these young people master technology. So we're on Zoom. So for a couple of hours on Wednesday afternoons, these high school and college students, we meet and we read a book together. And so we've been studying reparations, things like that. But we're in this book now. And I'm so interested to hear these ongoing conversations around the color of money, because we were talking about the Freedmen's Bureau a couple of weeks ago. And in Mississippi, the Black folks who were on the plantations when the Union Army came in, they told them, we need y'all to keep growing this cotton because we're going to use the money to fuel the war effort. And Black people were like, yeah, we've been growing cotton a long time. We was in slavery. So what y'all going to do for us? And they said, well, y'all can run the plantation and you can keep the land. They were like, okay. And then of course we know they sold them out. This is the origin of 40 Acres and a Mule in South Carolina, Mississippi, places like this. But they ran that plantation during the war. This is 1863, late 1862. They ran it so efficiently, of course, because they knew what they were doing. They ran the thing before anyway. That's what they were doing. They made a profit. That money, the profit they made at Davis Bend, Mississippi, that money went into the coffers of the Freedmen's Bureau. So when people think—
let me pause you there, because I think because it's almost like, I don't even want to compare it to the Holocaust, but when they liberated a lot of
it was a Holocaust.
People hadn't eaten, and folks gorged themselves on the food, and they died. They didn't die in the camp. They died from eating because they had been starving. I think a lot of people are starving right now, and I don't want them gorging on stuff.
That's a very good point. No, you're right. You're right. Let me just—
so let's break it up. Let's end here. Let's come back.
Oh, good. Well, if you don't mind,
yes.
Let me just— the point I was going to make is this, because I didn't want— you're right. You're absolutely right. It'd be too much. The simple point is this: when you talk about hope, and our people need to think about hope, the seeds of hope for us in the present and in the future are firmly planted in the achievements we had of the past. That's really the lesson, the broad lesson. We study, we find ourselves revived with hope. I'm a comic book collector. I got a stack of look, Civil War, Secret Empire. I got all the Black Panthers. My point is this: Wakanda's great, but you don't have to imagine a Wakanda. Go back and look at those Africans at Davis Bend plantation who grew that cotton and funded the Freedmen's Bureau. History teaches us to always have hope, because this ain't the worst thing we faced. That's all I wanted to say.
On that note, we're going to break. And then when we come back, there's going to be another one. We're going to do another. And I want people to start going on. I have now 2 books that I have to read. Thank you. And now I'm going to have to also invite Mr. David McBride, because that's how I do my show, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, as most folks, and I don't want to call them lazy or what have you, but it's easy to do a radio show, a television show using the same people.
Karen, I'm amazed that David McBride, who's sitting in Pennsylvania, isn't on every platform in the country.
Well, he will be now.
Book on how Black— it's amazing to me. Maybe not.
People, no, because people don't know, so they go with their friends. And but this is the point, oh, this celebrity or this person, I know this person, and so folks are. Fortunately, I don't have a whole lot of friends, so
you have a nation of friends.
I do my thing based on merit, not based on whether I like you or not, and whether you can bring something to the table. I'm grateful to Ajwa for introducing you to us.
That's my sister.
Like, yeah, but that's how that is supposed to work,
That is how it's supposed to work.
So
and working down here, they got to get this vote out. Ajwa is busting her tail because, like you, I am terrified at what could happen at the end of this year if we don't get our act together.
Yeah, let's talk about that too, because I think there's some shenanigans going on. Dr. Greg Carr, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Hunter, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Stay safe, sis.
I will. You too, bro.
All right.